this to build upon that? I mean, what would you say your mindset is heading into 2022?
I think it's the same goal. Try to do something we haven't done before. So now it's about winning the second one. So I think with our group, it's that's the expectation in this program, is to have a chance to play for it at the end. And that's our goal. It's a long way out there, so our goal right now is to have a good practice. But year in and year out, I don't think the goal ever changes here. And so these guys understand it, and it's just always that expectation.
How unsettled or settled is the pitching rotation right now?
It's pretty unsettled, but I feel good about it. So it's just some really good guys fighting for some spots. It'll take us, I'm sure, a couple weeks in spring training, a couple weeks in the season, maybe by the end of the season. We're talented, but we have some inexperience in spots, and we're going to have to figure out, who's going to fall in certain spots.
Do you feel better about this group than last year going into preseason? I know you had some talented guys then too, but not a whole lot of experience.
Yeah, I think, but some of the guys had done a little bit more, I think, and it was just so much depth on that pitching staff. It was hard not to feel great, but we're at a normal depth now, not a COVID, situation. But I feel good about our group.
Talk about how many guys are in the mix to maybe be starters. I remember in the fall you told us it was maybe like 5 or 6.
Yeah, we're still at 6 right now. So we're at 6 right now, and a lot of them could, we're going to split some games early to where a guy throws 4 or 5, another guy throws 4 or 5. Try to finish the game that way, but we're training everybody as a starter right now, so their volume will be up and ready to go.
You talked in the spring about flushing the national championship with this being a new team. Is it a little bit easier to do that now that the season's actually just a couple weeks away?
I think so. I think our guys are focused. They've been focused the whole time, and they got to enjoy it in the fall and experience that. But the message is just about this year's team, this year's journey is what we've talked about a lot, and building our own legacy here.
What was probably the biggest thing you learned from last year that you took away and trying to implement it this year?
Well, going through a COVID year, you lost some things you always thought were so important, and we had to do this, and we didn't do them, and we won at the highest level. So, not that everything's important, but it's not life or death. And so we're just trying to have good practices and getting these guys in the right spots right now.
You talked about the battle and the pitching rotation. What's the battle like in center field?
It's pretty good right now. So, Jess Davis, Braylon Skinner, and possibly other guys in time. We're the biggest. Those two guys can really defend. What can they do for us offensively? I think is the biggest decision, and who gets hot here in the spring training. So I think we're watching that pretty closely. We have a couple position battles. DH will be one. Second base is one. Tanner Leggett, RJ are both playing really well. So we're trying to figure ourselves out a little bit. And our young guys are good. We had a really good recruiting class, and they're putting some pressure on some guys who probably played some last year that are going to have to play well this year.
What's it like to have an anchor like Logan Tanner behind the plate, just from a leadership standpoint?
Well, it's awesome having Logan Tanner. I wish I had him every year. So he's a talented player, but like I've told a lot of people, he's so cerebral, really understands the game. Great feedback for Coach Fox and myself and our pitchers, and then he hits too. I mean, from having that really good defensive catcher that can change a game when it's bad is huge. So we're lucky to have him.
Can winning a national championship teach you anything about being a coach?
What's that?
Can winning a national championship teach you anything about being a coach?
I'm sure it did. I mean, it was really fun. It's funny when it's all said and done, you're right back to the same old job. So, except everybody's gunning for you. So I think we learned a lot, I think, in that process and handling it at that process, and then coming back and trying to do something different, do something special. So, but it really showed me the game is the game. The pureness of the game of baseball and coming out here and teaching it is what we're in it for the most.
Back to kind of the timeline of finding a starter. I feel like last year you guys came into the season with a ton of really good arms. Had to shake some things up throughout the year, even into the postseason, and you still came out national champion. So does that kind of ease the pressure a little bit on the timeline, just for you as a coach to think, okay, last year we won it all and we didn't really even figure out the rotation until later, so we'll just wait and see for those guys that are in those spots?
I'd rather have the rotation now, I'll be honest with you. I think that, and if you remember, we'd go to fly to Dallas, and I lost Sarantola, and then Bednar gets a crick in his neck, and then so we lost our rotation in the middle of the first weekend almost. So it made other guys be prepared, and we had other guys prepared, and they did a great job. And I think some of those things that happened early to us made us stronger at the end. And I think Houston Harding had to run out there and pitch early, which he ended up being such a big piece for us, which I wasn't sure how big a piece he was at this time last year. So I'm hoping we have some nice surprises on our staff, guys like that.
With guys like Tanner and Rowdy having moved on, How do you think this lineup compares? I know you've got some really good pieces like Helen and Brad, and how do you think this lineup can be in 2022?
I think one of the hardest things for us is, I've said this some, is finding a leadoff. I think since I've been here, we've had some pretty good ones in Rowdy, and the Mangum kid was all right too. And so getting somebody that can help you start the game, and we put Tanner in that part of the lineup, it was pretty special having them together. And so I like our lineup. It's a really good offensive lineup. But man, when you had like Tanner Allen, how many big hits I think he got every one of that he had the opportunity to get last year. So being able to win games and somebody else stepping up and becoming that guy that can get big swings off under pressure.
There was a time.
Luke Hancock's one. I think Luke Hancock can be one. I think all of them. Cameron James, Logan Tanner. I mean, we got a lot of veteran guys back and some really good young ones.
When you look around the conference, I mean, everybody lost pitching and everybody brought back, it seems, a lot of hitting. You prepared for an offensive year this year in the SEC?
We've talked about it. It is as offensive as I've ever seen it. I mean, we're really good offense. LSU, Arkansas, everybody in our division, Ole Miss, all their hitters back. And then you go to the other side, and teams in our league, Alabama has most of their offense. You go through it, and it's going to be who can pitch a little bit better, I think. And I'm hoping I think we have a really good pitching staff. But I could see some high-scoring games in our leagues at times because of the type of hitters we have in our league. It's totally opposite of last year. I felt that last year was a lot more pitching-wise.
Obviously, you turn the page to 2022, but when you're dealing with 18 to 22-year-old human beings, how tough is it to flush what happened last year and kind of look ahead?
Oh, it's not that hard. They can't. Their attention spans are not real long, so they don't stay focused on it too long. So they've been pretty good. They've been about the best. They're ready for the next day, the next drill. It gets hard here in the community a little bit, and it's a good thing, but our fan base is so awesome. Like I tell them, everybody's always patting them on the back, great job. And I said, well, we got a new job to do. And so, but our kids have handled it great. They really are. They're on to the next thing, this generation. And so that's our journey.
There was a time when there was a lot of turnover on this coaching staff before you got here, but you've had this same crew for several years now. How important is that for development and what you're wanting to do here at Mississippi State?
Well, it's huge. I feel like we have the best staff in the country. I'm sure a lot of other head coaches would say that too, but our administration's done a great job with keeping guys here and taking care of our coaches. And Jake Gautreaux, who was the 2019 Assistant Coach of the Year, and then you go to Scott Foxhall, who was 2021, and Kyle Cheesebro. But even all our support staff is still here, and it just makes the job a little bit easier. And it's a really tough job to start, and it's big for our kids to know what they're going to come back to and be coached at a high level, but also be coached the right way. And we got great coaches, but great men too.
Kind of touched on it a little bit, but Rowdy and TA, it seemed like every time you needed a big hit late, one of those two guys are up. They had the clutch gene. Is that something that you can develop, or is it something that people are born with? And is that something that maybe perhaps you would see some guys kind of assume that role this year?
I think they were born with it a little bit, and I think it gets stronger as time goes on too. So I think this environment, playing in this arena, stadium, whatever you want to call it, I think it builds that in time. And I think Tanner Allen was a lot more clutch late in his career than he was early, even though he was a good young player. And I think we'll see that with some of these other guys.
How do you go about finding the leaders to replace a Rowdy and Tanner? Is it something that organically happens, or do you kind of tab someone? How does that all work?
It pretty much happens that way. Just organically growing up in the clubhouse. And we got Landon Sims now, who's probably one of the better leaders in the country. Logan Tanner, Cameron James. One guy they don't talk about a lot is Luke Hancock, probably the quiet one, but he is probably as talented as guys we got, but also just the kids really look up to him. So I think it just happens over time.
You mentioned how much better can he even get? And where does he rank in terms of pitchers that you've worked with in your career?
Well, last year it was about as good as you can get. You take out the SEC tourney, I don't think he had a bad outing. But this year's going to be new. It's going to be a starter. It's going to be the league's better. The league's more offensive. There's going to be some growing pains there, but he is ultra talented and as good a competitor as you'll find. So
I think I asked you this after Jake and Mac left, but is it easier to replace leadership or production?
Wow, that's a really good one right there. Probably, I don't know. That is a really good question. I would usually the production, like we always talk about chemistry, is starting pitching. You have a really good starting pitcher, everybody's happy, everybody feels good in the locker room because of the production. So. I think they're even. That's not a good answer, but I think it's pretty even in terms of it's hard to replace. When you have the alphas. I talk about the alpha. Jake Mangum had that alpha. Ethan Small. like he didn't think anybody in the country could ever hit him. I still think he's pitching that way, you know. So you have these guys that that's hard to replace sometimes, but hopefully that can kind of grow inside our program.